Alright, so now let's get started on the final rough sketch, which of course if you're just kind of doing this on your own and you're not following me on, working with this, you don't have to do 3 sketches, you could just do that one rough sketch that you already did, in the previous video, and just that'll be that. That's pretty much good enough. This is pretty much good to go with finals and everything. However, because I want to move it to an even bigger canvas, I have to redraw it again. Now, another way that you can kind of combat this is you can take this into Photoshop, blow it up, make it bigger on your canvas, and then print it out. And then you can just kind of put the drawing underneath the paper here, and then you can trace over it. Now that's, kind of, I don't feel like doing it, so I'm just going to redraw it again. And so let's get started on that. So I'm going to just use this as reference once again, and I'm just going to draw my sketch here. So I'm going to go fairly loose with this. I'm not pressing hard. I only want to just get the basic block in here. So I'm just going to make sure her head's in. Her neck is 1 hand length. We have her body. We have her rib cage box. And I'm drawing this fairly big here, so I'm gonna have to scroll down my drawing here. But anyways, here we have her upper torso with her rib cage, and down here we would have her pelvis. So if you're working bigger, just kind of be careful with your size. Just make sure that you're constantly looking and comparing to your original sketch, seeing if it looks pretty good or not. Halfway point is her pelvis, and her pelvis is kind of facing inward, so we could kind of see more downward. I'm going to move this down here a little bit, and I don't have so much space left. But anyways, here I have her other leg that is in front. So I'm going to draw some cylinders that show that this is more of a frontal cylinder here. And of course, use your reference to kind of fix it if need be. So this is what it looks like so far. So far, so good. Now let's input her arms and her neck. Here's her arm. Here's her elbow, where her elbow is, and here is where her hand is. Here is where the leg is. Here's where the other leg is going from behind, and then here we have the other foot, and then we have the other foot here, kind of laying flat on our side view. So this is so far so good. Now let's go ahead and draw in where her hand's going to be. Of course, this is very rough, so you can fix it however you want. Here's where her other arm is, kind of just being more flat. And here is her chest, which will kind of push out a little bit. Then I'm going to slim down her figure just a little bit, just so it's a little bit more, not as blocky, but just more feminine. So I'm making her curves more noticeable. I'm adding in her clavicle at this point. And her fat pads, around her bottom area, her rear. And that is a good base sketch for now. Now we can go ahead and erase most of this just so that we don't have anything distracting us. Actually, let's put in her outfit. So I actually want to kind of redo her head a little bit here because it looks kind of odd. So I'm actually going to tilt her head just a little bit. And I'm changing the I'm changing the crosshair to a little bit more like she's looking up. There. So that looks a little bit better. Now we can go ahead and just kind of block in where the hair is going to be. Once again, be sure of your overlaps and your big, medium, and small shapes. You don't want to make every hair strand the same. It's the same size, I mean. So now I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. Let's give her some bells, because why not? Some bells and some ribbons, because I did not add any hair accessories aside from her, what's it called? Her ears. And we can just say that this is a headband. It's connecting all of this. I'm making this just a little bit smoother so it's not super sharp. You don't want it to be too sharp. And then let's go ahead and kind of drape her hair from the back and make it flow nicely. Let's also have some hair kind of covering the front as well, just for some more dynamic feel. Make sure it flows nicely and smoothly. So I like a more kind of wavier hairstyle, so I'm going to kind of wave out the ends, kind of curl them a little bit. So far so good. This is what the head roughly looks like. Now let's add in her collar. So I'm going to change the collar just a little bit. I'm going to make it more lacy around the collar here, around the ends, and then I'm going to add a ribbed bow on top. And I'm going to be erasing most of this later anyway, just because obviously just because this would distract me once I start lining this. So I want to make sure it's still pretty light but not too dark. Now instead of like a strap, I'm actually going to make this more like a heart shape. But let's see how this goes. I think so far so good. I think this looks good. Let's give her like a little cat emblem, cat beads or something. So they kind of look like little overalls. And let's add some ruffles. How about that? So I'm kind of like updating and also just kind of like refreshing, you know, what I want in the drawing because I still want this to be cute. I think the previous sketch looked a little bit too sexy for me, so I want to cutify a little bit. Here's a strap that kind of goes around. Maybe it's kind of like a plasticky look. And then here's a seam line. And here is the midriff. I still like the corset area here, so I'm going to just add it here. But I'm going to make it more like a plastic strap. So it's more thicker and has a little bit of groove to it. So it would still kind of fit that vibe, but just a little bit cuter and not so like, I don't know, leathery. So sometimes this kind of happens. This is just more like a fun thing to do. If you don't want to change your design, then you don't have to change it. I'm just changing it just because I want to. So yeah. So far so good. Now let's just continue more downward. And once we have the base, then everything seems a lot easier, right? Now let's go ahead and draw in her belt, which will of course wrap around like a little cylinder. And then let's go ahead and add a little cat emblem once again. And then let's add little bat wings because it's more of like a bat and cat motif. And of course I should have added some bat wings to her as well, but we'll do that later. Actually I want to add some... I think this is fine. Actually, I'm going to erase this part here because this looks a little bit too thick. I want there to be a good amount of I want there to be a good amount of space between the midriff and her skirt. So I'm actually going to make this just a little bit shorter. Here is her abdominal area. And then here we have her puffy sleeve. And then here we have the ruffles. So far so good. So we're only 10 minutes in, and we're kind of getting it pretty nice and settled here. So now let's go and draw in the skirt. And the skirt will be a little bit more complicated, but just kind of go round and then flatten. And then wrap the skirt around, once again, like a cylinder, because it's going over her legs. And we're going to just follow that shape pattern. Especially when it gets to the kind of more crotch area, you want to kind of add in the folds around, because it's kind of crinkled around that area. And then once again, just kind of repeat the folds. So I'm kind of darkening the hand area just so I can see it better. And this is what it looks like so far. So far, so good. Kind of going as planned. And then let's give her the chain around her skirt. And let's add some little bells to it. And we're almost done here. Now let's add in her little leggings. And once again, wrap them around like cylinders. You don't want it to be flat like this. You want to round it out. And here we have her glove, or her paw gloves, whatever those are, mittens. This can overlap over the leg here, because I just want that to be more visible. And make sure that the paws are a little bit more oversized, because it's overlapping her hand. So you want it to make it a little bit more oversized to also give it that cute look. So the more oversized it looks, the more it looks kind of like she has mittens on. So therefore, it would kind of give a sense that this is more like a costume rather than she's actually a cat and these hands are like claws. Okay, so once we have the main body, looks pretty good. So let me zoom out and see what this looks like. This is what it looks like as a whole. Let me darken some areas and then I'll end up erasing it anyway, but let's put in the nose. Let's add in the mouth, kind of make it a little bit more open. And let's add her eyes. So her eyes will be at the eye line. Make sure not to add it too high or too low. And I'm making her look up, kind of because it's more endearing. And let's give her a little wink. How about that? Because I don't really draw those as much. So let's give her a little wink. And that'll be good. So I'm going to actually move the mouth just a little bit because it looks a little bit like it's leaning too far this way. So I want to move this just a little bit. So it looks more like that. So once I fix that, I'm going to erase what I drew earlier. And I'm going to just fix that once again. Let's give her a little bit of hair on the side so it kind of... Actually, let's give a little bit of a curl here. So rather than make it straight, I'm going to give her a little curl just to give it some more flamboyance. Or some more flair. Alright, and now let's just get started with the background. So the background is a very simple background. It is very, Now, of course, I will be kind of drawing the boundaries here, so I'll be drawing the boundaries around the sides. I did not draw a canvas, so I would just probably plan it about there. And of course, I will straighten it once I start refining these things. So I'm going to draw some borders around her. And down here, so similar to the canvas that I had before. Make sure that there's enough breathing room above her head so that you can add, so it's not touching, so the ears are not touching the canvas on the top of the canvas. She has some breathing room here. So now let's look back at the sketch and let's just draw it. So here we have a ball of yarn in front of her. You can use the yarn to kind of show the shape of, or the direction of where the yarn is going. And she has some wrapper. Which can just be done by just having some nice cracks or some nice angular forms. Kind of crinkle it, kind of make it a little bit more random. And especially crinkle it, especially in areas where it's close to her body. Because that's, where she's sitting, right? Let's add some gift bags, and you can just make these very flat, just because these just serve for distance and the like. So just kind of add that at the back there. You don't have to do too much. It could just be very flat because this is more character central or character centered. So let's add some foreground by adding some more wrapper around the ground area. And then let's add the curtains. So the curtains will frame, we'll make sure that she's in the frame. So it's not just straight curtains like that. It's curved in, so the leading lines will, go more towards her. You can add a little bit of where the curtains end. Now let's add the window. So the window will just be kind of like a little grid. Kind of space them out a little bit. Just space them out like a grid. And remember, this is more of a flat look, so don't worry about perspective too much. For the city at the back, you just want to make it, just regular rectangular planes. Kind of vary up the shapes though, so you can kind of make big, small, big, medium, small buildings and the like. And you can also give her a little moon, but maybe I'll probably put it over here. Just like that. So that is pretty much it for the final rough sketch. This is similar to what we already drew. And yeah. Anyways, that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys in the next one.